Från nervosa, ci siamo. Yeah, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. All eyes on me. Hi, everybody. How are you? Hope you're fine. As my introduction suggests, I suppose that you understanding that today we're talking about two of the biggest stars in rap music, in the history of the rap music. And so it is, Tupac Shakur and Biggie Smalls, whose real name was Christopher Wallace. Yeah, we're talking about this unsolved case about these two rappers who we still don't know what happened. And so it is. I just started to make video in the English language recently. My first will come out about the last week of May 226. So, why talk about Tupac and Biggie? Because I've recently watched the homonymous TV series made in 218 miniseries, who was conceived as an anthology, but unfortunately it was cancelled apparently after the first season, which is the murders of Tupac and the Notorious B.I.G. So during the Easter period, a few weeks ago, I watched this TV series, this mini TV series, and I found it very interesting, though not so complete, not so accomplishing in the telling the story of these two figures in the last part of their lives, in my opinion. But it is undoubtedly one of the products that I would counsel you to, I would suggest you to watch if you want to enter the world of these two musicians, so loved yet so controversial at the same time. Because I don't want to hide, I don't want to put a finger on my face. I mean, Tupac and Biggie as well were two guys who had, like most of rappers, had very controversial lives and behavior. I mean, they don't have such sympathy with law, with respecting rules, which is something I could say always present as a topic, as topic issue in the rap music. So I think that the best is to analyze these two figures without hypocrisy, because if you start to say, oh, they were angels, they were the most wonderful people you would meet in your life, I mean, it's not a good service to information and to expanding the voice and the story of this two guys, of these two young men who were killed, unfortunately. Nowadays, this is the 3rd of May of 226. We don't know yet who killed Tupac and Biggie. That's the point. But let's start. First of all, I would like to tell you something about Tupac and about Notorious. Tupac Shakur, born Lezaine Parish Crooks. Wait a minute. I want to search photograph. Oh my god. Yeah. Uh, Forgive me 1 second. Tupac Shakur. Okay. We can use this. Okay. Sorry, just a minute. Yeah. Tupac Shakur. That's it. Okay. No, I can do this. Otherwise, you won't. I can read. Okay. Tupac Amaru Shakur, Burn Lizane Parish Crooks, was an American rapper and actor. Okay. Tupac Shakur was born from Fanny Shakur and Billy Garland, who's still alive, by the way, while Fanny Shakur died in 2016, so 10 years ago. What we can say about Tupac? Tupac was grown old, was born, was grown up with her mother, who was a Black Panther activist. Now, forgive me, I will be very straight about this. I am not such an empathizer with the Black Panther Party, because I think that if you want to have rights for the Black people, which is something saint and absolutely right to do, I don't think that violence is something you have to promote and you have to use to have listening for your fights and for the thing you fight for your rights. I think that the position of many of Black people in the past, I mean in the 60s and 50s, 60s, it's very wrong, or otherwise too strong. I've seen many movies about the Black Panther Party, and I think that, as well as the Malcolm X movement with the segregation, is a way to a bit controversial to show that white and black are just equal. And I think that it's true that they're equal, absolutely. But I think that the Martin Luther King position was much peaceful, and it was a much better way to show the concept. As I don't agree with the Black Lives Matter, because saying Black Lives Matter, it pretends that white lives doesn't matter, and I don't think that's true. Past year at university, I studied music, arts, and cinema. I had a little, how do you call when you, my God, I have to search that because I don't remember. Sorry. My English sometimes messes up. I don't recall the English word for litigio in Italian. Sorry. Just a sec. Anyway, all right. Okay. Minute. Yeah, sorry. Okay. I had a little bit argument with a girl much younger than me, because she's 9 years younger than me. A little bit stupid, I'd say, because she wasn't that smart to me. She was a bit shallow from a critic point of view. And we had a sort of an argument about thing of the Black Lives Matter, because we were studying modern history with Professor Tarantino, which is not related to the anonymous director, film director, Quentin. No, that's a name come from, obviously an Italian name, surname, come from the south of Italy, I suppose. And that's exactly what I said. I mean, if you say Black Lives Matters, if you say Julia's life matters, it may mean that otherwise other lives doesn't matter. I don't think that's the right message to vehiculate. So I think that growing up with a mother who was so politically characterized by a so powerful background as the Black Panther Party, hasn't been that good for Tupac, who grew up with a sort of inner feeling of going against rules, I suppose. Because if you study the life of Christopher Wallace, alias Biggie Smalls, it's quite different. Biggie Smalls' mother was another issue. So Tupac grew up with his mother, Fanny Shaker, which I don't condemn in any way. I just think that I don't agree with the principles of the Black Panther parties. Not the principles, but the way they externate that. Okay, which is quite different. So he starts to have a propension, keen on music, very young, and he starts to produce CDs, and no, there wasn't CDs yet, but there were VHS music cassettes, and etc., till he knows Suge Knight, that unfortunate day in which he knows he's known Suge Knight, who is the co-founder and former CEO of Death Row Records. Now, okay, let's say something. Which is something that I've always found curious and peculiar. Naming record label, music record label, Death Row Records. It's something very weird. I mean, I suppose that you may understand what I want to say. I mean, Death Row is a death row, okay? So why should a music producer name Death Row mark a record label? I mean, it's quite curious. It may represents a tendency to violence, a tendency to provocative violence. But rap music has always been surrendered by this aspect. And that's why many people don't like rap music, because they link that to violence, to not respecting rules, to be against law. And though rap is my favorite music genre, I don't know if you didn't know, I'm telling you now. So that's curious. Suge Knight is a very controversial figure in this story, and is in jail nowadays, and it will be out in many years from now. And Tupac, real name was Lisanne Parrish Crooks. Tupac Shakur was the name changed by her mother when he was when he was a little kid, because the mother was Black Panther activist. And you know the strong relationship between the NOI, Nation of Islam party, and the Black Panther Party. So again, the Nation of Islam wasn't that peaceful movement. If you've seen Ali by Michael Mann with an incredible Will Smith portraying Muhammad Ali alias Cassius Clay, if you've seen Malcolm X directed by Spike Lee, and so on, many movies about this issue, about this about the Noi nation of Islam, you would see that it is quite attainable as a truth, reconstructing all the things, all the process that have been um, in the story of Malcolm X, that Malcolm X was killed by some members of the Noi because he came out of the Noi. Malcolm X was the um, Islam name in the party. And Mohammed, who was Cassius Clay, named after an abolitionist, a white abolitionist in the 19th century, was he named himself Muhammad Ali after the conversion of to the Noi, to the Nation of Islam. So I'm against all the dimension of cooperatives, parties that took the character of, some sort of a sect organization, cult organization. And that's bad because it implicates that you can't have your personal point of view. You have to be their point of view. Not use your mind, not use your mental abilities and capacity, but you have to think as they tell you how to. Okay, so I don't like this. I really don't like this. Anyway, this Arabian name, son's name, Ismail's name, was due to the Black Panther Party affiliation by her mother. He demonstrates to be a very talent of rap music, and probably nowadays would be retired or anyway have a record label his own, I suppose. But Faith hasn't been that generous or anyway that good to him, because it was killed in the 13th of September 1996, and he was aged 25. 25 was so young. It was born in 1971, and so unfortunately it will always be one of those famous people, B.I.G, known as a legend because he also died young. Okay, passing to Notorious B.I.G. We can say that Notorious is a little bit different. I'll say that again. I'll come back to Tupac later. Notorious B.I.G. Notorious B.I.G., who's the alias of Christopher George Latour Wallace, was an American rapper and songwriter. So he wasn't an actor. So that's a quite big difference. I mean that probably Tupac was more famous than Notorious because, first of all, because Tupac was a nice man, was beautiful, was handsome man. Chris was not. That's not something offensive. I mean, I'm describing two different types. It was very seductive. It was such a handsome man. Christopher was more fascinating, maybe in an intellectual sense of feeling. I mean, if you read the texts of these two young men, you will see such a different style in writing in the rap mode, the beef, so-called beef, the dissing. So Notorious is quite more sophisticated. It's quite more poetic. Tupac is too tummy as a style, as a way to write down music, because it was more instinct. It was more impulsive. Biggie was more reflexive, was more intellectual. That's my point of view. I may be wrong. I'm not so a music expert, though I know about music, but I'm not that expert about music. Anyway, they have a different story. Tupac didn't have much relationship with his father, which is still alive, by the way, as I was saying before. Chris, I think, was orphaned by father, maybe, but I don't remember quite. Anyway, his mother was very. I think he's still alive. I think the mother of. No, 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 no. She died last year, past year, 225. Violetta Wallace was very sweet with him, though, and their parents were Jamaican immigrants, though he soon entered into the drug dealing sector, alcoholism, gambling. He was many times catched by police for these crimes, as much as Tupac, but none that frequently as Christopher. And exactly as Tupac, the same thing. Selwyn George Latour, who was Christopher's father, wasn't that present in the childhood of Biggie Smalls, of young Christopher, Christopher as a kid. So this is one of the other main line in the history of this so many rap musicians. I mean, the fact that the paternal figure is not that present. I mean, there are all girls, mostly young men, who doesn't have that great relationship um, with the masculine figure, with the paternal figure, because they were abandoned, they were mistreated, and so on. So, in fact, Tupac and Biggie had some things, some points, some links between each other, some things in common, lowest common denominators. So, it's very interesting. They were absolutely affectionated to women, but at the same time, a controversial relationship with women too. So it's very complicated to analyze the psychology of these musicians. Anyway, he didn't have that good health because his weight was very high. I mean, about 90 pounds mostly. And some autopsy relators say now, or many doctors and legal doctors say that one of the reasons that he died during the gunshot that occurred to him was, in fact, his weight, who didn't help him to maintain in life, because a shooting itself doesn't kill you. I mean that, of course, it can kill you, but not always. I mean that if you have strong force from a physically point of view, if you are if you have muscles, for example, if you're a sportsman, if you're a sportswoman, can preserve you to die from shooting. Tupac was catched in vital points. In the case of the Notorious Big, was quite different, because what didn't have was his style, it was his size, and it led him to fatal tragic death. Anyway, he was one of the prominent let's say opponent music competitor to because they were these, obviously we'll talk about that later, East and West Coast. He was the opposite style in talking from a styling point of view to Tupac. So there were the two main musicians at the time. There were Puff Daddy, who's still in jail. Hi, Puff, you're in jail. You'll be out not before 228. Such a guy, huh, isn't he? There was Snoop Dogg. There were many others. Dr. Dre. There were also the female sector. But the two more famous, the best doing music, rap music, were Tupac and Christopher Wallace. So, Tupac dies on 1996. 6 months later, the Notorious Big was being shot. Sorry, by an unknown killer. The 9th of March, 1997, aged 24, even younger than Tupac, because he was born a year later in 1972. So I'm 31 now, and thinking that two boys so young died for me, it's something unbelievable. I mean, it's something very incredible. I mean, if you think that as you grow up, you start seeing time in a different way, because when you were 16 years old, you think, oh, I'm grown out, I can do everything I want to do, but you're a kid, in fact. 24, you start to feel adult. 31, you're an adult, and if you think that there are people who die prior to their age, so 24, 23, that's absolutely incredible. For example, I discovered last few weeks ago that, who was that? Maybe Buddy Ali? I don't remember, sorry. Yeah, Buddy Ali, that died at the age of 22. My God, by a terrible accident. I mean, it was so young. In an airplane crash. I mean, can you imagine living just for 22 years? Nothing can who died at 18 years old. You were just a baby to me that now I am 31. So there are some incredible things that happen in the world. And Buddy Ali remains a legend because he's done that many songs, though he was so young, but mostly has been famous for song named Every Day. Na 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 na. I think you recall that, because Every Day. So if you think really that they were so young, Notorious, differently from Tupac, has left two children, including CJ, who's now 29 and is a rapper, an actor, and an entrepreneur, exactly as his father, who didn't know his father, because he was born on October and his father died on March of the later year, so he didn't know his father. And I don't remember at what age he made his first kid with Faith Evans, which is also a musician, an American singer. But what's incredible for his child is that sorry. I can find out when it was born his first son. Sorry. Okay, first daughter, not with Faith Havens, but with Jen Jackson, who was his girlfriend. Was born on 8th of August 1993. So when his father died, it was 3 years and a half. So she was very kid, but at least she started to know his father. But CJ didn't. My God, it's incredible. And if you think that Notorious was born in 1972, that means that when his first daughter was born, he was 21. He was so young. And he'd be such a young kid now, such a young man now. He'd be 54, and he had two kids, two sons, a daughter, a 33-year daughter, and a 30 and a 30-year-old boy kid, young son. So it's so tragic. For the Tupac died without having sons and daughters. But when you die and you leave such young daughters and sons, that's so true, so sad, and that's so bad for this little kid. Anyway, 7 months after the killing of Tupac, Biggie was killed by a drive-by homicide, gunshot wound, in 1997. 6 months. Try to go down the atmosphere of those months and try to imagine Tupac was dead. There was still alive Notorious, who was instantly pointed as the killer of Tupac. And then also Notorious died. Why dying? Why also big after Tupac? Let's go back to apologize. I pushed the wrong buttons. So I pushed the wrong button. So here we are again. I was saying, let's go back to Tupac for a minute. Let's go back to Tupac. Tupac, at a certain point, went to jail for physical aggression to public authority. I remember, maybe. But most of all, the principal thing that happened in Tupac life prior his death was the incarceration, was the jail detention that he had for sexual assault to a fan, which is a very controversial story because witnesses say that he wasn't guilty for that crime, but it was some sort of a table bill thing to put Tupac into troubles. He spent 9 months in jail, so very much time considering that it was just a kid, it was just a young boy. Then he came out under caution, I suppose, I didn't remember. Anyway, he spent many months in jail, and there are witnesses that say that people believe that he just had some sort of a transformation, spiritual transformation. He was very changed by this experience. He was very formed also by a musical point of view by this situation, by this period. And there's something very interesting to say. The so sweet, the so dear friend Suge Knight refused to pay the caution to let him out from jail. So you can imagine you're one of your best singers selling thousands and thousands of products in the world with your music, uh, music cassettes, okay, refuses to pay caution for you to help you from going out of jail, that says much about Suge Knight, I suppose. And when he went out, he um, he continued to work for Suge Knight till the end of death, till his assassination in Las Vegas, sorry. And the name of Tupac was very dirtied by the fact of the sexual assault accused. I don't believe he did that because he loved his mother so much. So someone who has a strong relationship with mother can make violence, can put violence on a girl, on a woman. That's psychologically talking impossible, because that's something that it can't happen. It can't be, because the figure which you are controversial, you are sort of opposite, is the masculine, because you didn't have a father. So you know, I think that that's been something built to put him in. I mean, when an artist is so famous and earns so many money, just see Michael Jackson, all the troubles that he had about the pedophilia accusations, people becomes terribly envious, and wants to destroy you. So I think that many of the rappers of that period had advantage from Tupac in jail, because if one who sells millions of discs around the world and goes to jail, there are holes to fill from other musicians. So that's the I prove that from I mean, in a very small part. I proved that myself. I'm a very good teacher, and many teachers doesn't like that, because they know that kids notice my ability to teach them, and when there is a very non-sufficient teacher, she is, I mean, bypassed by kids. And I've received many trying of sabotage, you could say. They didn't do that. I'm still here. Man. I'd be a rapper too, from sort of a point of view. So that's very frequent. I mean, the most you are successful, the most you are famous, the most you are talented, the most they want you to the most they want to destroy you. That's something so horrible to do to somebody. And that's happened to O.J. Simpson. That's happened to Michael Jackson, Tupac, Notorious in a big sense, but not as Tupac. I have to say something. As a kind of musically talking, I prefer Tupac. Lyrically talking, I prefer Notorious. Okay, this is the differences that I make. I mean, I like more an aspect of him, and I like the most an aspect of the other. So, going back to the story, he went out of jail and he was shot. Time later. Also, Notorious went to jail for drug dealing, I remember. And there are very controversial figures. Now, come to the TV series. Okay, let's say something. The TV series was made in 2018. And it was concepted, it was built as an anthology that will never, because the series was almost cancelled. Anyway, it's been 8 years since we haven't heard about new episodes and new series and new seasons. The series was created by Kai Long, and it was directed by many directors during, you see, Anthony Hemingway, Ernest Dickerson, Kate Woods, Darren Grant, etc. But mostly this, Erica Watson. The series is composed of 10 episodes that have length about 40 minutes each. And we have some actors. Josh Duhamel, who portrays the detective Greg Kading, who's very young, is 16 years old nowadays. And most of all, Jimmy Simpson, who you may recognize portraying Michael Mageau in the Zodiac movie directed by David Fincher, which portrays Detective Russell Paul, that died from a heart attack in 215. Which was famous to have his own theories about the Notorious Big killing. He didn't interested, and he didn't have the charge of the Tupac killing, but of the Notorious Big killing. Though there are obviously some links together from the two cases, and it remains famous for his, particular hypothesis to about this murder. And other actors include Bochum Woodbine, Jamie McShane, some of them I don't know. I don't know some of them. Brent Sexton, Wendell Pierce, Luke James. Most of them are black. Aisha Hinds, etc., etc., etc. Maestro Harrell, nice name. That is a rapper. Okay. Anyway, Luke James impersonates Sean Combs. Hi, Puff. How's life in jail? Sorry, I'm a bit cynic. I recognize that. Anyway, the series is an alternate narration of two stories at the same time, because from one point we have the investigation about the Tupac Shakur death by Detective Greg Kading. By the other side, we have Russell Paul, who investigations about Notorious Big. And this is an imaginary narration, because the two went on different periods from a historical point of view. Because the investigation of Russell Paul is dated 1997, so the same year Notorious died. While the investigation about Tupac took place in 209, so few years ago. We're talking about 17 years ago, so many years after the Tupac Shakur death. Now, what are the hypotheses? How you say that in English? The reconstruction, the supposition, the conjecture about these two deaths. Okay, one death basically is about the fact that maybe there's one point, both Russell Paul, Detective Paul, both Greg Kading think And Greg still thinks that the assassination of Tupac and Notorious is correlated, is linked. Okay? What did Greg think? Greg think that Notorious was killed. Okay, pass back. One pass back. We have to connotize the appurtenance of music feud. Okay? No, I'm a mistake my English. The side, music side. So I remember that few weeks ago I went to watch the Michael movie directed by Antoine Fuqua, which is very beautiful, suggest you, about the great Michael Jackson. And at a certain point, he's in his studios working on his new album. And he lights on television, and there's a TV series about the Crips murder in New York, I suppose, or in Miami, I don't remember. And follow this news, Michael decides to put on the two opposite feud and make them dance in the video clip with him. I mean, it was, I believe it was Billie Jean video clip, to give a message of peace, not war, to promote peace between all the little feuds that creates in cities like New York and cities like Las Vegas, etc., etc. And that, it's a very important recalls and reference to the Tupac and Biggie stories, because everything is born here, comes from that. Now, let's say that Notorious was part of the rap music done in the East Coast. So Notorious equal East Coast. He was from Brooklyn, New York. And his record label was the Bad Boy Records, owned by Puff Daddy. So Alice Sean Combs, now in jail, okay? While Tupac Shakur was the West Coast hip-hop music, okay? Tupac equal West Coast hip-hop, who was in Los Angeles, okay? So very different kind of places in the USA. If you ever been in USA, or if you're American, of course. I've never been in USA, unfortunately. I would like to go there as soon as possible, I suppose, by the fact that I'm 31, considering that I'm 31 years old. New York is a very cold town. It's always cold. There's always wind. If you've seen Unfaithful with Richard Gere and Diane Lane, it's very representative of the climate that you can have in New York. So meanwhile, at the same time, Las Vegas is always hot. It's always very hot climb. And I suppose that corresponds to the personalities of both Tupac and Biggie, in my opinion. So, Tupac is associated to the Death Row Records, okay? Symbol of the West Coast hip-hop music. California against New York State. New York State against the California State. So, that's very, very the beginning of everything. So Greg Kidding thinks that the killing of Tupac is related to something that doesn't have that spoiler of the series. So if you want to see the series with such a part of marvel of surprise, don't hear my podcast because there are many spoilers. I this is you find out this in the end because the series is all research about Tupac killing, but the construction of the thesis comes at the end of the series. Greg, what does Greg think? Detective Greg Keating think. Detective Greg Keating thinks. He thinks that the death of Tupac has nothing to do with the feud between West and East Coast, but has something to do with a figure who is very controversial itself, which is a boy, a girl, young man named Orlando Anderson, who, by the way, died 2 years after the killing of Tupac in 1998. And you want to know why he died? He died because he died by killing after a gunshot in a car washing in Compton. Weird, isn't it? Because why citing Orlando Anderson? Because it seems that few hours prior Tupac death, Tupac had bitten wrongly by mistake Orlando Anderson, and few hours later Tupac was killed. So Greg by the way, Orlando Anderson was part of the Crips, which is from Los Angeles and which is from the part which was part Tupac. We say that that's the West Coast. So absolutely, some of his. Okay, what has happened? Greg Kading receives full accusation, auto-accusation, and confession by the uncle of Orlando Anderson, which is this man named Dwayne K. D. Davis, who says that his nephew, Anderson Orlando, was beaten by Tupac. Okay? So, he testifies, Keefe D. Davis, Dwayne Keefe D. Davis, that his own nephew had shot Tupac for that beating hours prior the killing. Now, there are many controversial aspects of this testifying, because many say that Dwayne did that just to have popularity, but I don't say what popularity may it be because it's been put in jail for this. Because he says that this killing has been organized by he and his nephew, so he puts himself into this confession, okay? But he tells this in a documentary held on air years before the series was released. Of course, this series Unsolved was released, but then he retracted his own confession, saying nothing is true. I invented all, okay? But Detective Greg Kading thinks that au contraire, he was saying the truth. So he thinks that, and he's the one who the LAPD task force ordered the arrest of Duane Keith D. Davis in 223, so 3 years ago, for the murder of Tupac. Okay, so that's the thesis of Greg Kading. Okay, and you would say, okay, but why was Notorious killed? Notorious was killed, but you have to understand something. When an LAPD investigates, or any other police department investigates, you focus on the case that you have in charge. You don't think about the others. So they have to worry about Tupac assassination. Notorious is another fact. Also because there are different zones of America, because Tupac was killed in Los Angeles, while Notorious was killed in Los Angeles, while Tupac was killed in Las Vegas. So there are other sites, other places. Okay, so one in California, one in Nevada. Okay. So, Greg doesn't express much about the death of Notorious because he's not of his business in that moment, because he was investigated on the Tupac case. But here comes the figure of Russell Pohl. I want to show you Russell Pohl. By the way, there's been a movie made in the same year, most of in the same period, most in which was made the series Unsolved, which is City of Angels, which is a TV series. I'm sorry, which is a movie picture directed by. I'm sorry, I don't see nothing. Oh my God. Okay. City of Angels, directed. No, I'm sorry. City of Lies. Oh my God. City of Angels was the one with Matt Ryan and Nicolas Cage. City of Lies, directed by Brad Furman. Nice guy, handsome guy, and portrayed by my husband, Johnny Depp. In which he portrays Russell Pohl. And considerate that Russell Pohl was dead 3 years before this movie was made, 218. So it was a very prolific year for the Tupac and Notorious cases, because in the same year, 218, very two products were made: Unsolved, a TV series, and a movie picture, a motion picture, which is City of Lies with Johnny Depp. I watched it on the cinema with a former friend of mine. Anyway, my friend, but I haven't seen her for a very long time now, so former in that sense. We didn't argue anytime. And I remember that as more explicative of the case, confronting that to the series. The series is much more chaotic. The series goes back and forth so many times. It's more confusing. While the movie picture, focusing exclusively on the Notorious big figure, is much more explicative and exhaustive. Okay, so I suggest you to watch this movie. By the way, it's been produced by the Infinitum Nihil, which is the production home movie production by Johnny Depp himself, who is also producer with Chrissy Dombrowski, his sister, Samsar Kar, which is the development director. this was founded in 204. And by the way, it is the same who produced Hugo Cabret by Martin Scorsese. So Johnny is very careful to the production sector, to what product and to what not product. Produce. So Johnny, I estimate him also as a producer, movie producer. Anyway, City of Lies, I put you now this is, here we are, okay? I suggest you to watch this movie because it's much better than the TV series, in my opinion. I would see that again. I want to see that again, this movie, because I suppose that it's very interesting. And so that's what Greg says about the Tupac Shakur homicide. Let's go to Russell Poole, which is the character performed by Johnny Depp in this movie. I leave you Johnny because I love him, but I could no. Let's go back and make you see and show you who Russell Poole was. Okay. Sorry, I'm a bit confused sometimes. That's Russell Poole. Okay. Russell Poole is this one. What did Russell Poole think about the killing of Notorious B.I.G? He thought, comes out Johnny anyway, I'm so handsome. Johnny, marry me. Now that you're divorced from the bitch Amber Heard. Sorry, a big close parenthesis. Okay, he thought, I like most this one. Okay, Russell Poole was incredibly convinced that, keep you on your chair because that's incredible, that the killing of Notorious B.I.G, no, the killing of Tupac Shakur was made by Suge Knight himself. And you would say, why? I mean, the killing, sorry, I wanted to say, before talking about Notorious, let's talk about Tupac. You would say, why killing Tupac, who was one of his? Because Suge Knight, not it directly, but he assaulted to kill Tupac, had mistaken. He wanted to kill B.I.G, in fact, but it was dark. It was night. He's confused. He was confused by the dark at night, and he killed the wrong person, who was Tupac. Okay? So, and then when Notorious died 6 months later, it was Suge catching the right man, finally, with a much more organized killing. In fact, it was a drive-by homicide. It wasn't the same dynamic that led to Tupac death. Okay? So both Tupac and Notorious' death were ordered by Suge Knight. When I heard that, I was absolutely speechless, because that means that Suge has on its own 2 homicides, not just one. And that's very interesting, because that tells you how, in fact, this killing, just consider that considering that putting as certain that Russell Poole was right. I don't think that Russell Poole was right. Anyway, I don't think that it's so constructive as a reconstruction. because there are some things that doesn't catch with that, and I will take later. Anyway, put as true that Suge Knight wanted to kill Biggie. That means that Tupac didn't have to die, so he could have been now with us, nowadays, alive. And that's terrible to think. But what confitates this reconstruction? That Biggie and Tupac were very different from many points of view. Tupac was very skinny and thin, and Biggie was big, as his pseudonym suggests, and that's why he considered that, why he chose that. So why confusing such two different physically figures, one in each other? It's very strange. But Russell Poole was a very intelligent detective, so I suppose that if he thought that he had many objective elements to sustain this, to agree with this reconstruction. But the interesting thing is that both Russell Poole and Greg Kading thought that anyway, the killing of Notorious was to attribute to Suge Knight. And that's kind of a very interesting. Know why? I'll tell you now. Because Suge Knight in 218 has been accused of voluntary homicide and condemned to 28 years in jail. Know why? Because he killed 2 people by driving homicide. Weird, isn't it? Being accused from an homicide done in the same dynamics of the one of Notorious. Isn't it weird? You want to know what happened? He followed with his car, then hit and run 2 people. Okay? Voluntary manslaughter. By the way, he was affiliated with the mob Pure Bloods instead of the Bloods gang, so it wasn't that peaceful man, I say. He, as I recall, he hit and run after a woman and her daughter. Okay? And not just that. Because rooming and child concerns more the same day request for and to but I recall sorry no. I mistake myself. Quite that. That comes against cinema. There's another nice movie that I watched. No, I haven't watched this. There's a movie called All Eyes on Me, which is a movie about about the figure of Tupac, but indirectly talks also about the figure of Notorious. One of the interesting facts is that from 1996 on till nowadays, it's impossible not to tell the story of Tupac and at the same time talk about Notorious, or talking about Notorious and not talking about Tupac. It's reversible, you know. This movie, All Eyes on Me, 217. So we're talking about 1 year prior release of the TV series and City of Lies. So that biennial was incredibly for the reconstruction of these two deaths. This movie, it's very interesting. I suggest you to see it. And this actor was chosen, was very, Demetrius Shipp Jr. was very similar to Tupac, yes. And Jamal Woolard, same to the Notorious Big, but more Demetrius to Tupac. Anyway, I was saying that there's another movie that I haven't seen yet that tells about the not it doesn't talk about the Tupac Shakur um, um death or the death of Notorious, but about the contest in which the two moved. Okay, that's a movie. It's a very important movie. It received even a nomination at the Academy Awards in 216, for example. So it's a very important movie. Paul Giamatti portrays a role in the movie. And what did he do? In 30 January of 215, Suge Knights hit and run and killed one of the two, the director Clay Son, okay, and Terry Carter, founder of the Heavyweight Records, killing Terry and leaving wounded the director Clay Sohan, and ran away without giving help. He was put in jail with the accusation of voluntary manslaughter, and is in jail, and he won't be out less than 30 years in jail, considering that he's 16 now. I suppose that he will come out of jail probably when he'll be dead, because 60 more 60, it's about 90 years old. That means that he will spend the rest of his life in jail. Now, can you see that it's quite difficult to think that it doesn't have nothing to do with these two murders? And by the way, it's not the only thing that Suge is accused of, because if you see this figure, you will find out that he's been accused of many multiple crime things. Anyway, violation of the law. For example, Suge Knight has been incarcerated for bankruptcy, shooting in 214. So an year prior the assassination of this people, of this one man. Affiliation with mobs. So an incredible list of crime that it did. So we're not talking about a man who is absolutely, how do you say, without a how do you say that in English? I don't remember, sorry. Um, stain, stainless. This is not a stainless man. This is a very controversial man, an assassin by the law. He's a murderer. He's killed somebody. Okay? So, I mean, can you imagine a man who uh, wanted to kill a documentary director, Clay Sloan, who did nothing but I don't know, maybe just directed some film. I can imagine because what could he have to do? So that made him so angry. Um, I mean, you see how dangerous this person is. Fortunately, he's not in jail. Struck by a struck hit an incident in Compton, California. An incident caused by cyanide killed Carter and injured Sloan. Though Sloan refused to be used as a snitch and testify against Knight on September, Knight pleaded no contest to manslaughter and was sentenced to 28 years in prison. So, I mean, that's very, very weird. I mean, it's incredible. I can't believe this. I don't know which of this theory considered to be true because I haven't done a study, a full study about these cases. I'm in Italy. I mean, I'm not in the USA. I don't have the instruments to do that. And I have the knowledge to do that. And I have the relationships to do that. I'm in Italy and I found out things um, about the many killings that happen here in Italy, as the Monster of Florence, the Garlesco case, the Meredith Kercher homicide. But I'm in Italy. I can have information as you as American can have about this case. Maybe who lives in Los Angeles, who lives in New York. I don't live in both cities. For me, it's very difficult to do that. But in my opinion, I think that the truth of these two homicides might be something in the middle between the Russell Pohl's theory and the Greg Kading's theory. Because personally, there's something that doesn't convince me in both theories. I don't know exactly what might be truth, what truth might be. What I know is that, of course, the two deaths are related. I'm absolutely certain about that. The two deaths are related. There's something that can be disconnected between the two persons because it can be a case and coincidence that 6 months later, Tupac's death, Notorious dies too. It can be a coincidence. It's impossible from all point of view. So I hope that one day something will be discovered. Nowadays we have Duane in jail since 2023 for the murder of Tupac based on his own testifying and accusation, okay, and confession involving Orlando Anderson that is dead, so he will never speak to us because he died 2 years later, which is something interesting. Maybe he died because they wanted to say something to us, or maybe Orlando didn't kill Tupac but knew who did that and was killed to shut him up. Maybe it can be also another theory. Um, And we have Suge Knight in jail for a from a similar dynamic homicide of the one of Notorious. So it would be interesting. I mean, if I were in jail as Suge Knight, why not speaking? I'm in jail. I would have to be in jail for 30 years. Uh, let's say that it's a sort of a life sentence because he's 60 years now, and it will be out when it'll be almost 90 years old. So your life is basically ended, is finished. Why not talking about what happened? The fact that it's not talking, to me, it's quite curious, I have to say, because that would come to think that maybe it was him to have killed Notorious. But if it didn't kill Notorious, why be so angry with film directors, with label records producers, with other people, and with the depiction of him made in Straight Outta Compton? Why? If you have nothing to hide, why be so angry with people who point you as the killer of Tupac and Notorious? Why? If you have, if you are in peace with your conscience, why be so angry with somebody who tells them maybe you killed two rappers? No. So there's something that doesn't square here. That doesn't. It's not clear. Though I don't know what. I mean, I hope that one day we'll come to the truth. Too many years have passed since now. What I am a bit ascetic about is that in all these years, I mean, they were killed in public streets. They weren't killed in private streets or anyway in house and close locations. They were on the streets. No witnesses at all. How is that possible? So that's something weird. I mean, how can be possible that nobody talked about the the these two murders? Somebody must have known. Somebody must have seen something. I don't believe that person didn't see something that night, both night, September and March night, that 1996 and 1997. Somebody must have seen, but it's too freaked out to talk. They're scaring the shit out of them, I suppose. The shit out of them. But till people won't speak about an assassination, about testifying something so horrible, I think that it's not a civic jest to do. I think that people should start to be help for community, for justice. If you want who does homicide, who kills people, to pay with the right penalty, who is jail. Thank you guys for listening to me. And it's so sad that there are so many mysteries in American history. The Zodiac case, the killing of Tupac and Notorious. I want to say something very frankly. I don't say that these two guys were angels or were gods. But even if a very bad person dies, it is it is something that civility must do to find out the guilty of these jests. I believe that Greg Kading has such regretting for being kicked out of this case, and I believe, and I'm so convinced of that Russell Paul died for the heartbreaking of not being believed for his theory about the Notorious Big killing. It was treated very bad, and you can see that in the TV series. I don't think that Russell Poe was a crazy lunatic. I think that he was a very intelligent detective. I think that he had very reasonable facts and proofs to believe in this theory, in his theory. So anytime people come close to truth, people are declassed, people are discredited, and that's very bad. It shouldn't happen. Also in America, that happens also in America. I hope that the USA government, not that I hope now that there is Trump, but maybe in the next legislation, and maybe in the next government, I hope that something will be done for the killing of Notorious and Tupac. By the time Dwayne KFD is in jail, he he plays himself innocent, that he invented everything in that documentary confession. I don't know what to say, what to think, but it would be interesting to ask him why you said that. Why saying that you killed with your nephew and then saying that it was all invented? If you done that, why you did? What can I say? Hope something will change. Hope something will find out. Hope that maybe we'll have a name for both Tupac killing and for both Tupac and Notorious killing. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you hope you enjoyed this podcast too. If you if you want, by the end of May will be out also my personal tribute to Nicholas Brandon death, and I'll do other podcasts about arguments about issues that I am affectionated to. Thank you so much. We'll see soon. Hope you a nice weekend and a nice life, a nice everything, and all the best things in the world. Bye.